I'm back. I want to talk a little bit about financing at the federal level in the United States, then also the oil and diesel situation. Let's start with our insane government. We're $1.4 trillion in debt and climbing. The amount it costs to finance that debt, and what that means is for the federal government to pay interest on bonds and bills, federal T bonds, T bills, that people, governments, foreign entities, institutions buy to get the yield, to get the interest. That on the 30-year bond, okay, for 30 years. So if you buy it and you hold it to maturity, it would be 30 years. Went to 5.34% today. Okay, that's huge. And it's getting to the point where it's critical, where the federal government can't sustain paying that kind of interest on the bonds, or to a lesser extent on the bills. And T bills are anything under 1 year, 4 month, or I'm sorry, 3 month duration, 6 month, or whatever. Bonds are anything above, so 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year, 30 year. So what would the federal government do? Our Department of Treasury, okay, so our government. They typically do in time, not all the time, but sometimes they'll do bond repurchases. So they'll buy the bonds back and take them out of the market, okay, which helps support the bond market, their bond market. Well, they announced today that they're upping that operation from $2 to $4 billion, okay? Again, not one time. We're talking periodically that they're going to do this, and literally buy their own bonds, okay? And the 30-year bond went down. The yield on it went down from the high of 5.34 because of it, and gold shot up and silver. So why is that? Gold and silver shot up because they know that that's mega inflationary, okay? And the way this is going is probably sort of let everybody know the critical juncture of where the yield on the bond becomes unsustainable for the federal government. So that's why they announced that today and intervened. So again, that was at 5.34%. Now add in what had gone on about a week or two ago, where Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury, intervened in the Japanese bond market. Why? Because the yen, he wanted to support the yen, the currency of Japan, because interest rates were rising in Japan and interest yields on their bonds. And why is that critical to us? Because the largest holder of our federal treasury bonds is Japan. So if Japan were to start to sell off their holdings of our bonds, that puts further upward pressure on yields, on the yields that the federal government has to pay on their bonds and bills. So he did that by utilizing reserve currencies that he had, or in treasury, of euros, so European dominant denominations, and then taking those and buying the yen. What happened? It temporarily quelled that problem. It's now reemerging just after a week and a half. So yields are going up in Japan, which means they're going to be forced to sell treasuries. Their interest they pay on their bonds goes up, which means they'll want to buy their own bonds, or people will not, or other entities, other governments, whatever, and not ours. So again, it takes demand away from our bonds and our bills. In addition, let me just stay on that for a second. That's going to collapse. So Japan is going to start really net retracting their purchases of our bonds and our bills, creating upward pressure on interest rates here. Our government is literally buying its own debt. How's that working? Our quasi-government, which is not technically part of the government, but basically is, the Federal Reserve, they have not done QE yet, quantitative easing, like they did under Bernanke after the great financial crisis in 2011. But that's on the horizon. All this combined means that interest rates are going to spike. Inflation is going to spike, okay? And you're going to get it to the point where what's going to happen is the economy is going to collapse because of it, okay? At the same point in time, if that happens, you got the diesel price, which a lot of people don't understand the difference between the crack spread on oil and diesel. And diesel, I'll come back. Okay, I had to splice the video there. Back to where I was. Add in what's going on with oil, okay? And diesel and gas, and here's how it works. The paper price, meaning what it's trading for on the futures market, the spot price, is somewhere in the $80, $88 a barrel of crude oil. The actual price from the getting to the refiners is more like 140. Okay, so it's a big divergence, and it's because of market manipulation by the Trump administration using artificial intelligence, which cannot understand or differentiate between statements that are complete bullshit from the president or administration officials and something that's, a lie or, as opposed to the truth. It only knows, hey, the person that said this is somebody in authority, so it must be true, and we do it. So they've been manipulated by doing that. The algorithms that trade this stuff have worked to cap the price and keep it low. The Straits of Hormuz are still closed, okay? Period. They're not going to open. Trump may not do kinetic action, more bombing or war or whatever for a while, because he's worried about the midterms coming up in November, but I'll bet anything, a dime to a dollar, he does it afterwards. So now he's announcing that he's going to sit it out and let economic sanctions work on Iran. It's not going to work, okay, not even close. And he probably knows it. But he's buying time so that the Republicans can hold on to the House or Senate or something, and they're not going to do that. They're going to get absolutely trashed, eviscerated. And they deserve it. Nobody should be voting for the Republicans. Nobody. And, I'm not a Democrat, but I'm telling you right now, they're looking out more for everyday Americans than the Republicans are. All they care about is Israel and the money they get from AIPAC, which is an unregistered foreign agent lobby, in service of Israel. Anyways, I diverged. Back to the oil. Nobody uses oil, right? We use gasoline. We use diesel. Well, the crack spread, based on what it costs to produce diesel from gasoline, is really high. So it's causing a shortage in diesel that's emerging. Prices of gas and oil are going to shoot up big time, probably by mid-September, but definitely by early fall. And diesel will not only surge up in price, it'll become scarce. It might be hard to get. It might actually be at times impossible to get. What does that do to all the infrastructure of transport in this country? Truckers, okay, buses, other operations. It's going to make that almost, incredibly difficult to sometimes impossible. So if goods that are transported by them can't get to market, your Safeway, your Albertsons, your Ralph's, your whatever, Kroger's, Fry's, what the hell do you think that's going to do to prices? Prices are going to go ballistic. Further putting kerosene on the fire of inflation. Also causing a hell of a lot of hardship for people that can't afford it, the prices, and also need things and can't get it at the time they need it. This is all coming. And it is all coming to a, to a store near you soon, in the next month or two. And it is going to be absolutely chaotic. I've always been a master of the big picture. Fine details, not so much. But you're going to add in those two things to World War III, because the war in Iran is merging, and already has to some extent, with the idiotic Ukraine war. Both of those wars are caused by Jews. I'm going to say it flat out, okay? And all Ukraine had to do with ancestral hatred of Russians because of past discrimination and persecution by ethnic Russians against Jews, and the hatred of white Christians, which both the Ukrainians and the Russians are. So they end up all dying en masse. The Iran war is obviously for Israel, okay? Which, is a Jewish state. This is a bunch of crap. And in the end run, there is such a thing as the Samson option in Israel, which is if they feel they have no other alternative and they're threatened, they'll nuke everybody. And they have nukes that they stole from us, and I've talked about that in prior videos and the technology. You've got to wonder if all nations do come against Israel at some point. I'm not a dispensationalist. I'm not a Christian Zionist or any such thing. But I'm telling you right now, Israel's signing their own death warrant. And I would project that in the next few years, so call it by 2032, a little bit plus, that state might not even exist anymore. And, in my estimation, good riddance, because, Israel has cost us over $8 trillion of our national debt, which is approaching 40 trillion right now, since 9/11, since the terrorist attacks in 2001. Anyways, I see all these three things merging. We're talking chaos, and we're going through the fourth turning right now, the book by Neil Howe. There's no doubt that there's truth to that. And I don't know what comes of it afterwards, but I wanted to bring you guys up to speed on those things. And to the extent you can, have a good day. Bye.